Welcome once again to Insights, where we're presenting a number of profiles on people that are up for election within the Skagit County Commissioner's Office. And joining me now is Mark Lundsten. Mark, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it. The idea here is that, especially in this polarized world that we're living in, I think the elections this year, as everyone will agree, are probably far more important than anything in a generation or two. And so I think it's really nice for people to get a chance to just hear a little bit about the person behind the policies and the things that they believe in. So, yeah, I guess just to set the ball rolling, could you just chat about your background a little bit, where you come from, what you used to do?
Sure, I'd be happy to. I was born in California. I moved to Minnesota right away. And then my family settled in Colorado, and then I grew up there, went to high school. I spent every summer throughout my young childhood years and into until I went to college, I living with my grandparents in northern Minnesota. And it was kind of a Huck Finn life. I lived in farm country. My grandparents had retired. My best friends were farmers. I was bucking hay and hauling cows when I was 13 and 14 and so on. And then I would go back and go to school and in my home in Colorado. And it was kind of and we lived right next to the mountains, in a fairly small town. So I felt like I had this great experience in the American West of between the Minnesota lake country and the Colorado mountain country. And went to school in California. I loved reading and I did well in school, and I wanted to go to college. And when I graduated, I was going to come up to University of Washington and go to graduate school, and then I didn't want to go to college anymore, graduate school, and I did not agree. And so I went to work back to my summer job. I had learned to weld, and I was a good mechanic, so I went to work in the shipyard. That led me to fishing. And I ended up going to Alaska. That was my career for about 30 years. And in the meantime, my wife and I had gotten married. And I met her in high school. We had about 10 years of getting to know each other. And by the time we had lived together off and on, and by the time we had moved to Seattle, we about a few years later, we got married, and we've been married ever since. I have 2 kids and 2 grandkids. When I quit fishing, we moved to Anacortes. We wanted to get out of Seattle. In about 2003, we bought land up here, built a house, moved in, and
why Skagit County?
We loved. We felt very much at home in Puget Sound. We liked living in Seattle, and we loved the area here. We just always gravitated. We always had gravitated to this place. I have pictures of us wandering around Washington Park, in the 70s, just banging around up here. It's just a very nice, comfortable place for us. Has been for years, decades.
One of the things I wanted to touch on first is that, going back to what I said before about being such a polarized situation these days, is the COVID situation. Everything seems to be polarized, whether it's health or housing or anything. As far as COVID's concerned, have you been personally affected by that?
No one I know has gotten really sick. Some friends have gotten sick. No personal acquaintances or friends have died, thankfully. Our own situation is just that we're like millions of people. We're just sad that we're separated from people we care about, and that's just produces anxiety. That's anxiety, depression. Unhappiness in general. We need to be around people, and we're not able to do that as much as we want. And we have a 3-year-old granddaughter, and an 11-year-old granddaughter. And they're out in the world more than we are. And so we've had to cut back significantly, and they live nearby. Mm-hmm. So we haven't seen them nearly as much, and that's difficult.
Yeah. I think it's also a difficult situation because many people are caught in a corner with their businesses, or they're a family where the kids are stuck at home and they don't have the resources or the ability to look after them. There's so many complexities to that there isn't particularly there's certainly not a solution that's going to keep everybody happy.
No, and the I know that the economic inequity in this country, the difference between the rich and the poor, has just been grossly exaggerated with COVID now, and that's that problem is going to raise its head more and more in the next few years as the repercussions from the great amount of unemployment really is felt more thoroughly. We have huge structural changes to make they have to make sense, but we have to take care of our safety net and our way of our social security, our whole public security system of housing and education and so on, and just how our wealth distribution, our tax system, is all going to have to change, because we're going to have a huge underclass of people with not that much income. The ramifications are enormous, and we have to face that. We have to deal with it.
Going back to your earlier life, who would you say are some of the kind of like influences, role models that helped mold the kind of value system that you have, I guess, the direction that you look in? I had a couple of high school English teachers, actually, or high school teachers, one in English and one in chemistry, very different subjects, and they both sort of set me on a course. They were both very supportive and difficult. One was very much more sort of your friendly uncle, and one was sort of your grouchy uncle, and I just loved them both, and they reciprocated. They were friends. One in particular remained my friend, and we got closer and closer and he died a couple 15 years ago or so. But that was a huge loss. He was someone who was like a mentor. So I was fortunate to have that experience. Someone teaching me Shakespeare and Dante when I was 17 years old. Oh, really? Yeah.
It was great.
What motivated you to go for commissioner?
I felt like I wanted to make a difference, to do something meaningful in my world. I've always had a sense that I have to take care of what's in front of me, leave it better tomorrow than it is today. And if it's not a problem, you don't worry about it. You let it go. But if there's something that's a problem, you need to step up, is my philosophy. And I've done that in fishing. That's how I got in. I've never run for office, but I was involved in fish politics because we needed to be. Our fishery was going to be in trouble if we didn't address some issues, overcrowding and so on. And we did. But in these times, honestly, when Trump was elected, I was one of those people who hadn't been involved in politics that much in the 10 years prior, and suddenly I found that I couldn't sleep, and because I was concerned about the level of discourse that he brought to our politics. Was obvious that we were this was a whole different problem of communication, of governance that we had to face. And I figured we have to do this in our town, in our county, in our area. We have to take care of this here and work from the ground up. We have to rebuild politics. And that's how I got started, and led me to be on the Planning Commission. And once I had put my name up to be on the Planning Commission because I'd shown up to enough MoveOn.org meetings or Indivisible meetings here and there that I somebody said, you ought to put your name up. And what I realized is that the county issues, natural resource management, the social issues we have, was very, very similar to what I was used to in Alaska with fisheries issues.
So what would you say what are some of the big issues for you?
Well, one of them is that you have to separate, you have to do conservation and management. And you have to do it for real people who are all very diverse, very different. And lots of different economic classes. In fishing, there's factory trawlers all the way down to hand trollers, one-man operation, versus multinational corporation, 300-foot boat. Here we have big corporations that own PACCAR or any number of industries around here, and the farming is an example. It's not one of the big industries around here, but it's substantial, and it characterizes our place. So, but you have potato farmers with huge capital investment, and you have organic farmers who have CSAs, and they're all you've got soup to nuts, and they all need water, they all need good soil, they all need good management, just like in fishing. In water, for example, the Skagit River is a classic example of, or the aquifer on Guaymas. Any water supply is kind of like a natural resource. You have to conserve it and make sure you don't wipe it out, and then you have to manage it reasonably. You have to have a mechanism to manage it. And in Alaska, what we did in fishing was that you never mix conservation issues with allocation issues. Allocation is who gets to do what, who gets to make the money, who gets the rights to something. Conservation is make sure that you save the golden goose. Keep it secure. Make sure there's water in the river. Make sure there's fish in the sea. Whatever the resource is, conserve it. Then, only then, if you don't conserve it, you're not going to allocate anything. So that's the big thing that I see here is to have a mechanism to conserve, and then the tools to allocate rationally and transparently.
Sure. I mean, without going into the actual mechanics of that, in principle, do you feel there are ways to achieve that?
Oh yeah, I think so. I think a lot of the problems I see around here is just bad blood. Too many years of too many people arguing with each other and just deciding that they're a bad guy or a bad girl. And I think there's some, Hatfield and McCoy, kind of issues going on. But I'll never talk to that son of a bitch kind of thing. And that's surmountable if you just start to look at what your goals are. Yeah. I think sadly, people usually don't come to the table until everybody's suffered enough pain that they realize they absolutely have to. And if you can massage that a little bit and make it so people can understand that it's more important to get to the table earlier, we're better off.
And being one of 3 commissioners ultimately, what are your thoughts on the dynamics there as far as working together?
From what I see, from Lisa, who's been serving for a while, and from either Peter or Mary, I don't see any problem communicating with any of them. And I think there's enough of a common thread of interest that we could, that I think any combination of those 3 with either Mary or Peter, I feel like we would have a very open, non-ideological conversation about just about anything that comes up.
Yeah, thanks. What would you say are some of the biggest opportunities for Skagit moving forward that you'd like to see be developed?
I think that the challenge we face is one of deciding what we're going to do with the land, and that sounds simple, and it seems like we should just follow, we should have a template, but there's pressure to not use the Growth Management Act. The Growth Management Act is the blueprint that keeps the county in a certain set of parameters. 80% of the people should be moving into the cities and 20% and so on. And the tenets of the Growth Management Act are just to prevent random sprawl.
Sure.
Like LA in the 50s, or that's the whole impetus for this thing that covers the whole state. And in Skagit, it's really important to keep our farmland and our cities intact, and keep the and allow for the population pressure we're going to have to not overrun the countryside. If we can thread that needle, I think we will have a new sort of awakening of, or not it's not going to be that big a dramatic thing, but I have the confidence that we can negotiate that and keep our open space open and keep this a beautiful place. I mean, the problem here is that if you do good planning and you make a place and you keep a place beautiful, people want to move here and the prices go up. So if you want affordable housing, people could say that, well, that's just going to make it harder. And it is, and that's
success has a price.
That's our challenge. I mean, we have to keep it beautiful and livable, and the reason, I mean, this is an enchanting place. This is like Switzerland, you drive around, or it's like this is we've got little national park type places all over Skagit County. We have these, like they should be on a calendar. We can keep that. We can keep that characteristic.
So if you do become commissioner and you serve your time as commissioner, looking back, what do you think you'd like to be remembered for? What one thing would you?
I'd like to have a good system of government that allows the public to trust it and to interact with it and to believe it. I'd like to reestablish faith in local governmental processes. I don't believe in small government or big government. I believe in good government. I think we have to have, government is a cooperative of people. That's what democracy is. It's really a co-op. We, like the farmers in North Dakota got together when a bunch of Norwegians came over, and they established co-ops for any number of things because they knew they had to stick together or they would perish. Well, basically, democracy follows the same kind of pattern where we just stick together to do the things we have to do because we can't do it on our own. And we do it as equals. The Constitution the basic of the Constitution, basis is that we're equals and we're pulling together for something. That's in a nutshell what I think we need to do in order to make government approachable to any individual and accountable to them.
That's great. Thank you. I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us, and best of luck to you.
Thank you. Good to be here.